And back after a short hiatus, the twin turbo Mach 1 is sold, and we've got this S197 behind me. Now, if you can't wrap your head around why someone would ever do that, go back and watch my last video and I'll explain everything. All you need to know right now is we are taking this already very special track prepped race car and taking it just one step further with the addition of a Momo steering wheel and quick disconnect hub from NRG. So we're gonna flip the camera around, show you what we purchased, where we purchased it from, and then dive into the disassembly and the installation, and then take this thing out on the street. So for this project, I opted for this Momo steering wheel, and I'm gonna show you a picture in a second from Race Ready Motorsports' website of why I chose it. Basically, I saw this picture of this bad boy on a Porsche, and it just looked amazing. And I knew a lot of people use the Ford racing wheel, but this is just a little bit different. And it also spaces the wheel a little bit closer to you with the offset like that. So I think it's gonna look a little different. I'm really pumped. It's totally circular and a smaller diameter than what came stock in my S197. Now, in order to go along with that, I did want an option where I could retain a horn. So I've got a horn button here. We'll see if we can make this work. The folks at Race Ready Motorsports were fantastic. They basically laid everything out for me and explained how everything was gonna go together. I was choosing something a bit unique, so they basically said, you know what, we'll take the time to lay everything out and make sure it's all gonna fit and work for you. So they helped me spec the parts. I got the hub and the quick disconnect from NRG and all the installation kit. And if you want more stuff from NRG, they've got a really cool catalog as well. So before we go ahead and install this, we've got to remove what's existing. So let's dive into that first. In terms of tools, you don't need very much, but you will need an 8mm. You could use a 1/4-inch drive like this or 3/8 if that's all you have. But you're going to be disconnecting and working around the airbag. So you want to disconnect the battery. This is not one of those jobs where you say, you know what, we don't need to disconnect the battery. You definitely do. So let's go ahead and do that first. Pro tip, once you've disconnected the battery, don't just let it hang right there, because what can happen is it can droop back down and it doesn't have to be fully connected. If it touches the negative side of the battery and you're working with the airbag, you could have a bad day. So take yourself a cloth, put something down in between there so it cannot connect. Now we're gonna dive inside the car and I'll show you some of the next steps. Now this is gonna be, well, isn't that the coolest thing ever? If your car's got a roll cage like mine, you've got a nice place to clamp your light, which is perfect for showing you the next step. See these right here on both sides of the steering wheel? I'm just gonna show you one, but trust me, there's one on the other side. You are gonna need to pop these off, and once you pop these off, you will gain access to the 8mm bolts, which you must remove. Grab yourself a little pick or something similar and pop it free. Okay, using your little pick like so, or a screwdriver, you could go ahead and free these up. Now, these have never came loose in my car, so they were in there pretty good. But if we look over in that hole, if we keep zooming in, there is that 8mm that you're gonna need to undo. Okay, with your 8mm, a nice little extension, start breaking those loose. They come loose pretty easily. You might want a magnet to make sure you don't drop it down in there. I decided a magnet was key. I don't wanna drop those. And we'll go in there and fish those two screws out. We'll dive in here, try and grab that one. Ooh, we got you. We'll grab the other one next. Same deal over here. Next step is to take your airbag, and it should just pop out. Take your time. It's actually even easier than that. All you gotta do is just squeeze and pull straight up, and these come loose. We'll do the same thing with the other one. Whoa, Jesus. That was terrifying. Okay, maybe don't film while you do this. We're gonna set it in the passenger seat, and now you can get an idea. So now you see your airbag connections, you see your big 15/16 bolt, and basically your clock spring. We'll talk about all this in a second here. Reach in here and undo this clip, which I'm gonna try and do while I'm filming, which is not going well when your hands are too big. Okay, the best way to get this loose is to take a little pick, and see right there, if you just push down right there, this whole thing just pops, boop, right loose, like so. First, even though they said 15/16, let's double check, and that is the correct size. Take your time. All right, that was easy. Now, like I said, we're not going to take this bolt all the way out. We're actually going to thread it back in a little bit so I can, oh, man, I'm so strong. Jeez Louise. Okay, that was easy. Well, if it was on there hard or you're not as strong as me, then basically put the camera down or whatever, have a buddy if you're really weak and just yank that thing towards you and it should come right loose. Hey, look, I got some steps in here. Boom, that bolt is out. Ooh, she pretty. Set that down in here and then the whole assembly, boop, boop, comes off. So at this point, the next step is to remove these trim pieces. Now this top one, I'm told, just clips into place, and that is correct. I just put a little bit of force on it, it popped right loose. On the bottom, there are some Torx connectors. I know it's hard to see in here, but basically, there we go. There's one right there and one on the other side. I think they're either a T15 or a T20, so you'll need a Torx to remove those, and then you can take those trim pieces completely off. Pro tip, when you're wiggling this loose, it does just pop out of place, but it does help if you go and put your wipers all the way down and turn your left turn signal on, and then that pops right off. But like I said, you will need the Torx. Again, we're just gonna go set this right over there. Okay, make sure the shifter still works. We're good. Just in case you were curious about size, it's not that much different in size, but it is smaller. So smaller steering wheel, typically going to give you a little bit more steering feedback. It's going to require a little bit more force. You've got a little bit less leverage. But if you look, it's smaller, but it's not drastically different. Okay, back down on your hands and knees. It is a T20, and you got to undo both of them. So if yours is a 2006 like mine, you're going to need a T10, and you remove those 4 little screws, which are in each corner, and then this clock spring comes off. There is an electrical connector down here that I will have to set the camera down for so we can disconnect. I suspect that that electrical connector does all sorts of things and probably is where I tie into for my horn. So, just as I suspected, that pops right out. These are the type of connectors you can't really grab with your fingers, and they are a little greasy. I would recommend using a little pick, and you can get down in there, and they've got this like little funky tang, which I won't be able to get on film very well. But all you gotta know is your clock spring needs to come loose, and if you're not doing anything with your horn, then this guy can just get tucked out of the way somewhere. But I think we're gonna try and retain a horn, so we may have to play around with that a little bit. I've got the electronics out, but don't worry, I won't scare you. I'll talk you through this. So if you install your new wheel with your new hub and your new quick release, just as so, but your airbag is gone, well, guess what? You're gonna get a light. Now, what these do is they serve 2 purposes. One, there's a 2 amp fuse. That's just for safety, okay? The other thing is, see this little heat shrunk area right here? Well, I'm fairly positive that there's a little resistor in there, and that resistor is meant to mimic the resistance through the airbag circuit, thus tricking the car into thinking there's an airbag so that you can install your aftermarket wheel without a light. You get 2 of these. Why do you get 2 of these? Well, if you remember, we had to unplug 2 plugs. But how do you figure out where these plugs go? What you do is you take your multimeter. Don't worry, I'm gonna show you. You set it to ohms, okay? Now, you take 1 lead, it doesn't matter whether it's black or red, and you go ahead and you basically probe one side. And then you look on here and you find any spot that you've got little tangs that you plug into. I checked all of those, nothing. Then I came down here and I said, well, that's funny. The outer 2 look different. I bet you it's probably those, but I checked all of them anyway. And sure enough, the outer 2 on each side are what are connected to this. So you would take these, go inside the car, slide those in. I'll show you in a second. And basically, you will trick everything into thinking that you have an airbag. What do I mean by plug them in? Well, I definitely cannot do this with a camera in my hand, but the outer 2 on that side and the outer 2 on that side are what you slide this into, and it thinks that there's an airbag in there. Get over how useful this roll cage is for light. Okay, the next part is actually pretty tricky. I found a schematic online, which I'll post here on the screen. But if you look, see all these different colored wires? The dark blue wire is, I believe, the one that you want to use. Now the kit comes with 2 different types of wires, and this threw me off because I thought I had to jab both of them in there, and one was male and one was female. They give you both so you have the option. you want to take the one that's the male and you want to stab it into the dark blue. Now I believe, and we're going to test this theory, that if I do that, I should then be able to, with like a little gator clip or something, ground this to like a chassis ground or the steering column or something like that, and the horn should go off if the battery is hooked back up. We'll have to check and see, but I think that's the idea. Okay, we're trying this with a gator clip to ground. It works. That's what your wiring should look like if you want everything to work. I'll take a picture so you have a screenshot. This is something a lot of people don't show you on these cars, and I think it'll be helpful. At this point, the plastic pieces go back on. Grab your T20, come back up under here. Man, it's hard to do two things at once, but tighten these back up, both of them. So for the next part, you are going to sneak that wire through this top hole, and you'll notice there's a dot here and a dot here. That slides on there. Your horn wire goes through here. You can push the extra slack through that you don't need when you're done. And that's about it. We did grab some blue Loctite, and we are going to use the impact just to pull this down on here. So the next step is to take your hub and quick release, if you have it assembled like I do because I was playing with it. Disconnect these two. The hub is what's going to be mounted to what we've already installed. Back inside the car, we've got the one wire here. We've got two wires here. So that's a female, so we'll be attaching the male. So I ran an extra ground wire back through, and then up under the dash, there's plenty of metal, okay? You can see right next to the roll cage there, there's a little spot over here that's metal. All of that underneath the dash without me crawling back under there is good ground. It's been tested. So now what's gonna happen is when you hit the horn button, you've got coming through our white wire here, that's coming like from the horn, and then these two contacts through the NRG hub are gonna route back to ground, to the ground we connected. You can pick any ground you want. There's probably other ways of doing this. This is how I decided to do it. So now we'll put everything back together, test it out. I got everything hand started. They provide you with an Allen wrench. These are relatively small screws. So take your time. We'll go in a star pattern. I won't bore you, but get everything nice and tight. Make sure it sits nice and flush and no wires are pinched anywhere. Okay, once everything's installed, this is how it should look. Now, just in case you weren't clear with how this works, you just take this and it locks into place like so. There's a little safety button here. You press down, or sometimes you can just squeeze the sides and it comes off, so you can remove your steering wheel. Okay. This next part threw me for a loop, but luckily, Race Ready Motorsports sent me everything I need to do it right. Now, if you're doing what I'm doing with an NRG hub on a Momo wheel in a Mustang, this part is not gonna work for you, okay? Can't use that. Basically, it can only fit one way or the other, and it doesn't play nicely between the wheel and the hub. So this is out, one button. So what I think happens is this slides into here, okay? Down in there, and then when it does, it crushes this enough that it holds the horn in firmly, okay? And I think if we do it this way, everything will stay in place, the horn won't fall out. I'll kind of show you what I mean. Press this ring in, just slide in with your fingers. I had to crimp on 2 females. So yellow female, we're good. Crimped on this female. These are gonna connect to here, so when you press the button, it completes the circle. Now that we got this on here, you line up your horn button, or at least I did, with the top hole, and then we'll go ahead and put these screws in. 6 Newton meters is what they call for. If you got a torque wrench, look on your torque wrench. Probably gonna need an inch-pound torque wrench for Newton meters. We'll get it on there. Finger tight first. You wanna torque these, be my guest. 6 Newton meters is the equivalent of 53 inch-pounds. Inch-pounds, guys, not foot-pounds. So an inch-pound torque wrench, it does not take much. Okay, moment of truth, let's try it out. Yay, it works. Don't mind the race brakes. This thing is good. Something about that smaller wheel just makes it absolutely perfect. Uh-oh, we gotta drive. Oh, what's going on up here? Who knows? Also, the view from in here, so much better. I can bring the wheel down now, so it's at a more comfortable position because the diameter is smaller. I get better visibility through the gauges all the way around. This is a better setup. You're gonna love it. Try it out. Hit up the folks at Race Ready Motorsports and they will hook you up. It's time to ditch that stock steering wheel. I cannot reiterate this enough. Changing a wheel totally will change how your car drives, especially if you go to a smaller wheel. In my case, I'm very tall and I'm able to bring my steering wheel down, which really puts me in better control of the car. But the biggest takeaway here for me is who I purchased it from. So going through Race Ready Motorsports, I've never had such good customer service. I'm not just saying this. I mean, they really took the time to lay everything out, explain to me the differences. A lot of people do what I'm doing with the Ford Racing wheel. And when you do that, you don't get a horn. Sometimes you have issues with the check engine light, the airbag light. But I talked with them, they talked me through everything. They laid everything out. They warned me about a couple things. It was really good customer service. So check them out. They're serious about Mustangs and other cars too. But hit up John at Race Ready Motorsports and he will help hook you up for whatever your project is. We're gonna be getting this thing out on the track soon, but before that, we've got some gauges to go in. It's about 2 or 3 weeks, we're gonna be doing our first drift day with the car, and I'm hoping to get some gauges in first, maybe even on the dyno, we'll see. You'll have to check it out though on my next video. Please hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date for when the next video drops. Thanks for watching, guys.